Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chasing, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout. Mic check, lights flash, game time, stay ready. 2 vets in the zone, keep the pressure real heavy. Big hits, big plays, yeah, we breaking it down. Truth rings in your speakers, every word is the crown. From the north side hustle to that southern flame. Midwest grind, west coast of the game. Sports talk kings, yeah, we wear that crown. Turn it up, let them know it's about to go down. Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout.
It's about to go down.
Yes. You are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. And it is championship weekend in the NFL. So you know we got some picks to make. College football, playoffs, talk, too early top 25 reaction. Is LeBron James just a little bit ungrateful? We'll get into that in a little bit more. He is Mr. Logical. I am 2-5. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. Murdering your thirst with a liquid death in your hand. You know, shout out to my Say Less, Say More gang. Check us out Saturdays. All right, Mr. Logical. We got some championship games this weekend, but before we even make a pick, I want to know, what Super Bowl do you want to see?
Super Bowl I want to see. Well, considering I don't think any of these matchups are ultra compelling. I don't think if it was something like a rookie quarterback that was in one of the championship games, or a rookie head coach, or a pupil coach, mentor situation. I think that. So I think just strictly for the rematch, and just so I can see that Russell Wilson slant pass that I still think was a good call. I'll argue it to the day my heart stopped beating. I think it was a good call because everybody was selling out for the run. But we'll get to have that conversation for 2 weeks, and then people can chime in on TikTok how stupid of a play call that was. I'm like, what if it'll work? Because I know they threw a fade route to Michael Crabtree at the end of the San Francisco-Baltimore thing, and it was was that a great play? If he caught it, it would have been. That's all I'm saying. It just so happened that it got picked off that it was a bad play. I thought it was a very good play call. It just was, New England's always got an upper hand, legally or illegally, you never know. And they just happen to know what it was, and they practiced it all week. So, like I said, still feels a good play. So I like the matchup of Seattle and New England just for the rematch.
Well, you know me. I want Seattle, Denver. I want
that
one of
rematch.
Those. I just want that 13-12 Super Bowl, that low scoring Super Bowl that's going to make America go crazy. Also, I didn't even think about the rematch, actually, before
until
you
just said it, because I remember me and you watched it at Mike's house.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I was actually going to go with the angle of former AFC West rivals. They used to be in the same division back in the day. So that's where I was going to go with it, but also like I said, I just, in this age of all the rules favor the offense, you can't breathe on a receiver, all those type of things. I just want to see the defenses highlighted. I don't really care if it's really.
So you would have needed Houston in this AFC Championship game to get that potential Super Bowl match.
Yeah, and CJ Stroud made sure that wasn't going to happen.
Because I think Seattle put up points on. I know we talk about San Francisco's defense was kind of depleted,
right?
But they did do a great job the week before against a very talented Philadelphia squad. So to put up, you have the special teams points, but collectively over 40 points. I think you still get the same thing because as we go back to the rematch aspect of it, I knew wholeheartedly that Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos were going to just tear up the Legion of Boom. And then I remember we had Super Bowl squares, and I had 5 and 0, and I was like, when the safety happened, I was like, how do you have a safety on the first play? And I thought, like, wait, hold on,
Get that field goal.
I got 5 and 0. That was 250 a square. That was a pretty hefty little pot. Then I did not win any of them, and
Right.
we got a pseudo entertaining Super Bowl.
I did have Seattle in that game, by the way. KJ Wright, Super Bowl MVP. But I think that New England would be a great story just because Drake May, no Tom Brady. So it's like, hey, can they win one without Tom Brady? That would be a great discussion, or a great thing to talk about later down the road, when we're talking about how good is Drake May really? Yeah, I think it is. Because, like in the NBA, right? One of the arguments.
I want to get this guy's name right. Keep going.
One of the arguments I've been having over the last couple of years, was about how Kevin Durant came and took over Golden State. And then people always tell me, well, they won before KD and then they won after KD. So I think those conversations are kind of cool, because like a lot of these teams, their success is generally predicated on one dude. Like you got your Steelers, Cowboys, 49ers section where like it's multiple over the courses of generations. But for the most part, most of these Super Bowl teams, like Seattle, right? That was the Russell Wilson era. So them just making another Super Bowl, would be awesome in a way.
Yeah, this comedian, I'm going to probably mess his name up, Stavros Halakias. He's the chubby Greek comedian. He's from Baltimore. I saw a stand-up of his early in the week. He's like, I hate the New England Patriots. Like, you guys were supposed to suffer for like some years. He's like, you had a dynasty, you won all these games, you had a first-round bust that you drafted at quarterback. That's supposed to set you back even more. Like you lose a great guy, you try to replace him with another guy, then you draft a guy, that doesn't work out. It's not supposed to go right to the next guy, and then you get to the AFC Championship, and the team you're playing, their starting quarterback is out, and the backup. I think Jarrett used to be a backup in New England, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they drafted him actually.
Yeah, so it's like you're not supposed to have this kind of luck. Like the Falcons, we had a great run in 2016 and 2017 season, that Super Bowl, and then we lost a 28-3 lead. And then we went back to the playoffs. So we're like, okay, cool. The ship is steady. And then the bottom fell out. And it's been a hole ever since. We've drafted good players, Pro Bowl offensive players. We had like multiple coaches. We got another coaches. And like, we're just falling apart. I'm putting X's on my hat. Like, and New England fans are just like, boom, let's break out the old Tom Brady jersey, put it back on, and go to Foxborough for, division round playoffs. And then maybe let's fly to Denver and their backup quarterback and watch us march on to the Super Bowl yet again. Just sometimes, listen, I get it. God doesn't give it both hands, but he gave a lot to New England.
Yeah, so we'll see. So with that being said, let's get right to it. Up at Lumen Field, the Rams are coming in. This is the third time that they've played Seattle this year. The point differential +1 in favor of the Rams. The Rams won early in the season 21-19. Seattle had a chance for a game-winning field goal, albeit very long distance. And then, of course, there was the Thursday night thriller where Matthew Stafford threw for 457 yards. And, there was the big blown lead. So, Mr. Logical, can the Rams get out of Lumen with a win and go to the Super Bowl?
Absolutely, they can.
Okay.
And we talked about it. I was talking about with a coworker the other day in my office. And we were talking about teams. You have great coaches, you have great playmakers, stuff like that. But it's like a team that has people that can just change the other team's flow. Matthew Stafford is one of those quarterbacks that you can set it all up, but you can't confuse him because he's played so many games. You just have to be sound because what he can do with his arm changes the game. He can change it. I'll go back to the Atlanta game when he missed that throw to the guy that was wide open, running like an over route. And then he made the throw to Puka that Puka almost caught. It's like That doesn't happen with every quarterback because you get one of those in the drive and that kind of a crunch time situation and you miss one, they normally go the next 3 plays and it's it. Like that's the end of the game. Like he had his one shot and he blew it. Matthew Stafford composed himself, gets it back together, and makes almost another great throw in that same drive. He does like the no look throws. We can remember the Super Bowl, that drive. Granted, they were assisted by potential pass interference that I didn't agree with, but that won me like $750 in another Super Bowl squares pool, so I was good with it. But just his ability to change, to flip the field with just his talent. Aside from all the other talent he has, just him being able to look up and see Tutu Atwell wide open because somebody blew a coverage and leaned too far to Devontae Adams and make that throw. Like that's, and I think that's the difference between you have your great defense, but he's such a playmaker and a game changer that he can make a great defensive. You could be in the right position and he can just throw a great back shoulder throw. Now that 3rd and 12 is a 17-yard gain, and now the drive continues.
Yeah, I think the Rams actually have Seattle's number, which is weird considering that Seattle won the last time that they played. There was the 2-point conversion in overtime. But to your point, Seattle's got a lot going on right now. You know, we didn't really get to see it against the 49ers, but apparently, Sam Darnold had that oblique injury. You know, you're not going to be able to hide that this week against that defensive line and that pressure that the Rams are going to bring.
I think he threw 17 passes last week.
Yeah. And
but he didn't strain in that game at all.
So these last couple of years against the Rams, you know, so this season in particular, the 2 games that they played, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions for Sam Darnold. You know, going back to last year when he played in Minnesota, the infamous Thursday night game with the face mask no call.
The most obvious face mask no call.
You know how many times they sacked him in that game?
I think it was like 6 or 7.
They sacked him 9 times in that game. So the Rams have exactly the formula to get to Sam Darnold and to throw him off kilter. And you know, once he gets off kilter, anything can happen.
Goes.
You know, then you got Zach Charbonnet. You know, he's going to be missing the game with the torn ACL. So, you know, a lot more load on Kenneth Walker, who's injury prone himself. And, you know, where else is the yards going to come from? Like, you know, then, you know, Seattle's left tackle is injured. He's going to play. But still, I don't like your left tackle being injured coming into a game against Jared Verse. So I think that it's just lining up. Now, what Seattle has on their side, of course, is Lumen Field, the 12th man. You know, and also on top of that, you know, that defense will get after it. You know, that first matchup against the Rams, they held the Rams in check. So it can be done. But I think in a game like this magnitude, I think I'm just trusting what I deem to be the better coach and the quarterback, because this might be Matt Stafford's last crack at it. You know what I mean? Not saying that he's going to retire per se, but I don't know how much longer you're going to play at this level.
It's a lot of football. Season. Like you're looking at this point, they've played 17 regular season games. He didn't think he was going to start the year because his back was hurting all summer long. And now this is your 3rd playoff game. You win it
all on the road.
You have to go to the Super Bowl. That's 21 games this year. Then you gotta win or lose. You gotta ramp it down for the rest of February, and then ramp it back up in March. Yeah, that 3 weeks in February can be, you know what? That trip to Dominican Republic is nice and warm there. It's like, you know what, Kelly? I think I'm just gonna stay home with you and the girls, hold this press conference, and wrap it up. So, yeah, it probably takes a lot. So I think it's a lot. Like you said, the Sam Darnold effect. Last week he threw 17 passes. I think it was like 139 yards or something. But, like, the game was pretty much well in hand. All 3 aspects, offense, defense, special teams. They had Brock Purdy run around like Mahomes in the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. I think he ran like 403 yards behind the line of scrimmage to avoid sacks. It was, I think Mahomes was like 413, 415, 440, something in that. It was 400 something. Brock Purdy was over 400. I think it was like 403 yards. The CompuStat numbers of him just running back and forth behind the line of scrimmage to avoid sacks and rushes and so forth and so on. So Seattle wasn't really tested. And I always look at it as like, okay, gift and a curse. You were so prepared the week before that you didn't get tested, so it's nothing to work on. So it's like, do you go into this week extra cautious? I think it's good that they're playing a division opponent, someone that's seen them twice or someone that's beat them once. I think that can help them focus. But if they were playing against Chicago, I don't know if they're as, I don't want to say prepared, but I think it's an era of ambiguity with Chicago coming in, a team not your division, but a team that's beaten you a couple times, a coach that seems to have everybody's number in the division. I think you want to be the new big dog on the block and knock them off. So I'm gonna get an edge of Seattle. But it would not surprise me if the Rams pulled this off.
Yeah, I think having a coach like McVay and Shula's been doing a great job this year as well. I think that they remember that Thursday night game. If you remember in that first half, they held JSN catchless. And then I believe they took their foot off the gas just a little bit and it came back to bite them. So it's one of those things, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me.
Twice, fool me, can't get fooled again.
Yeah. So I'm going with the Rams here. I see something along the lines of 27-23. I was
thinking 23-17.
That makes sense. I can see that
like
too.
That. I thought you were going to say the same score as me.
Nah, but also, once upon a time, not long ago, actually it was long ago, it was about 10, 11 years ago, Tom Brady took a team into Denver to play the skeleton of Peyton Manning. And, of course, the Patriots lost that game 20-18. Denver went on to beat Carolina in the Super Bowl. On top of that, New England 0-4 historically in the playoffs at Mile High. So if Tom Brady can't do it, I don't know. We got a guy making his first playoff start on the road, and he's going to Mile High, and it's a championship game. Now, on the other side, obviously, we talked about Jarrett Stidham, former Patriot, who Josh McDaniels probably knows real well, considering that he was the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach when they drafted Jarrett Stidham to New England.
Yes.
So, Mr. Logical, is there an inkling of a chance we could see a Nick Foles-inspired game this weekend?
Nick Foles had a couple of regular season games. I think people kind of forget that part of the mystique because I believe Carson Wentz got hurt week 12 or 13 with the ACL.
Yeah, I think I want to say 13, yeah.
And Nick Foles had already had a full season where he threw 27 touchdowns and 2 picks. He already signed a couple of contract extensions, like big contracts to other teams. He had been around and he had, some of his own success. And I think Sean Payton's giving City the vote of confidence. But in the same sense, I don't know how many chances he's going to take.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine a lot of his throws are going to be like cherry picked. It's going to be first read, check down, scramble. I think it's going to play out a lot like a rookie quarterback in his early starts in the NFL. Not a guy that's going to be checking to this, checking to that, and throwing like this mean seam route in between the safety and the linebacker. I don't think he's going to force those kind of throws.
Right.
Because those are timing throws. And if you're off a little bit, the ball gets tipped in the air, it's intercepted. I don't think he's going to make those kind of throws. So I think it's going to be very vanilla. And they're going to hope that the defense can force Drake May into playing the way, and the offensive line into playing the way they played last week against Houston, where it's just he was fumbling the ball, wasn't feeling the pressure, getting the ball stripped out in the pocket, fumbling when he was scrambling. They need one of those kind of messy Drake May games that Drake May put on film last week, and then Stidham can take that, that shot over the top because it's like, okay, we got a couple of possessions back. But if New England plays like a clean game, runs the ball well, nothing like I don't need Drake May going out there 330 yards, anything like that. I mean, he was completing like over 70% of his passes. I think damn near 80. So just do that. Do that. Step up in the pocket when the pocket starts to collapse. Don't fumble the ball, and you can get out of there with the 27-17 victory, 27-20, something along those lines.
So Drake May, in these 2 playoff games that he's played, has been sacked 10 times. After watching Denver's run defense against Buffalo last week, it's just time to keep it close to the vest. You don't have to expose yourself and look for the big play to win this game, because theoretically Denver's not going to be able to move the ball that much, because when we go back and look at it, ever since J.K. Dobbins got hurt, Denver's run offense is pretty much non-existent. Not that it was that great when J.K. Dobbins was there, but it's better than it is now. Cortland Sutton, he's a guy that I like a lot. I liked him a lot coming out of college, out of SMU. But he has what I like to think of Keon Coleman as. He'll make tough catches. He'll get in traffic and pull it out the way. But that's the problem. All his catches are in traffic. He never gets the separation. So I think if you're Denver, you got to get the ball probably in Marvin Mims' hand. Use him in that Malachi Tony kind of way, those tunnel screens, bubble screens, use him out of the backfield, Tyreek Hill style, just to have a different focus of New England to make their defense.
Get the ball in the hands of a playmaker that's shifty in space.
Yes.
I think that should be football 101. A lot of teams don't do it. A lot of teams don't have a guy like that. It's like, just get this guy 101 with a linebacker.
And the other problem is that these Denver linebackers, as good as they are, they can be had too in coverage.
Yeah,
we saw Dalton Kincaid, have a field day, against them. So I think Denver can keep this game close just off of the strength of, they're the best team in the AFC coming into the playoff. They do have the home field advantage, a place where, we always talk about teams coming from west to east, but now you got this team coming over there. Now, granted, it doesn't usually work out that same way, but Mile High is a tough place to play, not just the weather or not the altitude, but just in general. Those fans are on you. It's loud, so this is Drake May's first playoff game. So I do think that we may see a mistake or two from Drake May. I just don't know if Denver can actually capitalize on it. So
depends. If the mistakes look like the mistakes he had against Houston, then I think Sean Payton and Stidham can capitalize on recovering fumbles at the 22-yard line. Because I think Houston had a couple opportunities where they missed the recovery of a fumble. It got a fumble and then fumbled the ball right back. So I just think that, like I said, for all the stuff I talk about Sean Payton, I think he can dumb it down enough for Jarrett Stidham. And like you said, just get the ball in the hand of these big-time playmakers. I think their slot wide receiver, number 11, the name escapes me, for Denver. If he's healthy, he's a big threat.
Are you talking about, is that Franklin?
Franklin.
Yeah, Troy Franklin, yeah.
So I like Franklin. I like because Sutton naturally will probably get your best corner. And if he doesn't get your best corner, like your number one, he's going to get some extra attention. So even if you put Franklin on Christian Gonzalez, which is a matchup nightmare, he was wearing a no contact jersey this week. I don't know what that was about. I don't know if he was.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything. I know Carlton Davis is in concussion protocol.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe he ran in solidarity. I don't know, but he was wearing a no contact jersey, I believe, Tuesday at practice. So if that's not the case, then I think you can make something happen with backup quarterback and probably a wide receiver he's probably throwing more routes to than Cortland Sutton.
Yeah. So, I do think there is a chance for Denver to win this game, but I think it's going to be that Super Bowl thing I was just talking about, 16-13 type of game where, they're going to have to just make Drake May beat him. He can, You know what I mean? You got Butte, you got Stephon Diggs out there. And then, of course, the X factor, Trayvon Henderson, how many touches is he going to get? Because all he needs is one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think New England just has too much firepower. Like, I would love this game if it was Houston and Denver, because then, like, I really could see Denver winning that game.
Your 13-9 prediction would come
true. Yeah, that would be what happened.
I think what New England has, and we talked about all the 32 teams and the coaches, and we talked about the coaching hires and the fires and the voice in the locker room and the person you want to hear. Mike Vrabel is the perfect coach to have in this situation where you're going up against a team who seems to be wounded because they're down the backup quarterback. I don't think he's going to walk into the locker room on some cocky, we just made it to the Super Bowl. All we have to do is keep this backup in check. I don't think he's going to prepare guys that way. Whereas I do think there's coaches in the league that will go into the first day of practice that week and say to the defense, you're really going to let a backup quarterback beat you as a means of motivating. I could see Dan Campbell doing it. I could see Ben Johnson saying some silly like that. I could see Sirianni using that kind of trope to get the team riled up. Whereas Vrabel, I think, will show you film of all of Jarrett Stidham's best throws and all of his best attributes. And he'll talk about what other coaches have said about him and do not take this guy lightly to get his team prepared.
And you don't have to worry about him getting too cute either.
There's no flea flickers coming out of New England in the whatever the weather is going to be in Denver. We got this winter weather that's coming through.
Oh, no, that's actually good over there.
So we getting all the crap over here.
Yeah.
And they're getting all
both games should have pretty mild weather. So we'll have that going for us, and we won't have any excuses if something crazy does happen of, they had this weather, or the ball was slippery. Like, they're just going to line up, play football, and that's what we're here for. But Mr. Logical, switching gear. Oh, actually, before we switch gears, still wild that there's 5 jobs open too.
I think there's probably 2 or 3 people, 2 to 4, let's say 3 to 4 play coaches in this Final Four that are waiting to have their press conference with one of the open teams this week.
Yeah.
We saw the Ravens hired their young version of John Harbaugh.
Yep, who I thought they were going to hire. So yeah, it made sense. It just what's the word? They don't. Football teams are we're learning, and I guess all across sports, like you were talking about with Kevin Stefanski, it's very relationship based. So it's about who you know, where you've been. Have you worked here before? Have you worked with any of our guys before?
How many cups of coffee have you had with Nick Vay?
Yeah, because I know Shula. I brought up Shula. He's being mentioned for some of these jobs. I think that Buffalo, the latest that I've heard with them is that they may be interested in Clint Kubiak, who I think everybody should be interested in, just with the way that the NFL is going, the trajectory of the league, but now I wonder with a team like Arizona, because when I look at Arizona, and I've talked about this before, I see talent throughout that roster, but I don't think coaches look at their organization as I think it's the organization.
I think it's rated 32 out of 32 by the players.
Yeah, they don't look at that team, and I think that's what they're having trouble with. So I think the Cardinals
players have to pay for their lunch at work.
That was one first world problems, baby. First world problems. Like the Cardinals are gonna get stuck with somebody that is a name that just came out of nowhere. But a name that came out of nowhere that I heard earlier, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, is allegedly Mario Cristobal has interest from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm not sure why NFL teams would even pursue college coaches, considering some of the most successful college coaches don't do well in the NFL when they try it out, and then they go back to college and dominate. Urban Meyer did it. Pete Carroll did it.
Nick Saban
did it. Nick freaking Saban won like 7 championships after he failed in Miami. And his team was competing for championships pretty much every year. They were in either a BCS Bowl, SEC Championship, BCS Bowl, or championship, if not all 3 every year in the years after he essentially, for lack of a better word, failed in Miami. So I don't know why NFL teams are looking there, considering the history does not support it. It's like, let's keep it real. If you got to a new base and you met a new airman and he went to the local strip club and he was like, hey, I think I found the love of my life. Like, listen, man, that might work out. But mathematically, across all military branches, it doesn't really work out that well that you found the love of your life at the strip club outside of this tiny base in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Just throwing it out there. It's probably not likely that you are finding your future head coach from college, especially a guy who already has as many years coaching as he does. So I'm saying it's like it doesn't compute to me. It's like I'll pick an NFL candidate and just ride or die with that.
So I try my hardest to not live life in absolutes, because obviously like that's where stereotypes come from. It gets a little dangerous and all that. But the other night when we were talking about Jeff Hafley, I made the comment along the lines of there's some guys that you just look at and you go, that's not a college coach. That's an NFL coach. I think Mario Cristobal has the mind of an NFL coach. And I think that is what has made him as successful as he has been. Because you and I both know he will blow a lead. You know what I'm saying? Like there are some decisions like that fumble against Georgia Tech a couple of years ago when all they had to do was run out the clock. Things like that. Yeah, things like that. You look at him and, you just kind of go, I don't even know if he's a good coach or if he's a good recruiter. But the things that he specializes in is offensive line and running backs, and he is conservative in that Harbaugh kind of way, Jim Harbaugh kind of way. So from that standpoint, I could see him being an NFL coach and going that he's an offensive line type dude. Remember, all this year we've been talking about the Steelers and how they don't look like the Steelers. Like a coach like Mario Cristobal brings that identity.
Was inadequate, yes.
Yeah, he would bring that identity. Now, I don't think he's leaving Miami. Like, I don't think, even if they were to offer him, I don't think they're going to offer him. But even if they were to offer him, he's a Miami guy through and through. He's from Miami. He went to Miami. He lives and dies Miami. And I know that he had some family stuff. It was part of the reason why he ended up back at Miami. So I don't know. But the Raiders, the Raiders are out here still looking for a coach. Maybe they're looking. Well, maybe.
I mean,
he would bring something there that they need.
I don't like the retread that Atlanta made. I don't like that decision. And I like it even less considering that we're just now interviewing a GM.
Well, the retread that Atlanta did is, he won Coach of the Year twice, but he has a 46-56 career record. Sean McDermott's record is 98-50, so it's not quite the same.
It's not quite the same. It's like, because I saw a podcast, I think it was based out of Atlanta, like 680.
But if I'm him, I don't take like that.
They were talking about like, hey, Stefanski should have had to get an offensive coordinator job and show, oh yeah, I care about coaching, because the entire narrative this year was like that he didn't. Right. So I think McDermott does care. I just think he's in a situation where the belief was the voice was getting stale in the room and then we need to switch it up. Because schematically it was just fine. They put up 30 points. They had 2 bad pass interference calls on that last drive. And then a controversial call that we're going to argue as much as probably the Super Bowl slant pass. And it wouldn't surprise me because it seems to happen with Buffalo a lot in the playoffs, where something happens in the playoffs and then the rules committee comes up with a little bit more clarity and or just flat out changes the rules.
They still haven't won an overtime game.
But, I think that's – so he's three calls away from having an opportunity. Well, 4, because like I said, we felt like there was a pass interference in the end of the fourth quarter before they tied it. That would have given the ball at like the 1 or 2 yard line. So I think with that being said, the Raiders, I'm not sure how hands off they are as far as like just building a team. I don't know how much Mark Davis gets his hand, and I know how much he influences the type of players he wants, whatever the case may be. But if they allow him to just bring his 90 wins and say, hey, you got 90 wins in Buffalo, we're going to probably start over the new young quarterback. And you know they're going to give him a great 5-year contract, probably $65 million.
Mm-hmm.
So if they fire him, he'll get all of it. So I think that's a good spot. Cleveland, still out there looking for a coach. They're probably looking at one of these offensive coordinators and one of these Final Four teams, I imagine.
I think Cleveland's going to end up I think they're going to end up promoting Jim Schwartz. I think that's going to be the thing for them because I don't know who's interested in that job. You know what I mean? Because right now, just looking at the quarterback position, right? You had the drama from this year and you're potentially bringing back Deshaun Watson next season as well.
Yeah, but your drama consists of a former, all-pro, Pro Bowl quarterback, dual threat, and Deshaun Watson. Yes, he's coming off a couple of bad injuries. You have a young guy, very polarizing, and you have Dylan Gabriel. I think Dylan Gabriel is going to be a great third-string quarterback because I don't think he challenges the other two. I think he's there just in case. Like if you go into training camp, I think it was more clear-cut than Stefanski made it. I think Flacco should have been 1 going into the season. Shador should have been 2. Kenny Pickett was rightfully sent off to another team. Dylan would have been your 3rd. These guys learn from Flacco, and then as the weeks go on, you figure out, is my number 2, that's Shador, who has the bigger upside, bigger body, bigger arm. Is he the guy? And I think if I'm the next Cleveland coach, I'll go into the season with Deshaun Watson as my 1, Shador as my 2, Dylan as 3. I still got Myles Garrett. I still have that tough defense. I still have 2 good tight ends. Maybe I move Judy for a piece or 2 and elevate another wide receiver to 1. I think Cleveland has more promise. It's just Stefanski made it look so bad because I saw like, okay, real quick, and I'll let you go. Or I'm gonna let you finish. I saw a redraft of the first round of the 2025 draft that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleveland had a lot of rookies make impact plays at the time of this. 4 or 5 of them were in the first round for other teams. And somebody commented under the video, like, so you mean to tell me, so Cleveland has 5 first-round rookies?
Yeah, I mean they had
right now
Mason Graham,
Fannin.
Judkins, but he got hurt later in the year.
Judkins,
Dylan Sampson.
I think Shador was even kind of mentioned in that redraft. So it was like 4 or 5 guys. So if I'm looking at the Cleveland team, if I can get a healthy Deshaun Watson back, or however the contract is structured, if I can move him, because I'm pretty sure there's teams that are in that position where it's like, hey, if the money isn't gonna be that 200 guaranteed or whatever that number is, however they restructure the deal and the trade, I think Cleveland is a promising organization as an opportunity. I'm just not sure if you mesh well with the organization. Like, was it Stefanski and his relationship with Andrew Berry and the ownership, or is it just Cleveland and it's cursed? But if I'm if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'll take that interview.
Well, allegedly, I haven't verified this, but I saw something, because I guess Cleveland is going more analytical these days, and they've been allegedly having their coaching candidates fill out questionnaires and all this kind of stuff because Mike McDaniels, and there was a second coach that I can't think of right now. They canceled their interviews, with the Browns.
Whatchamacallit, Mentor.
Yeah, Jesse Mentor.
He got hired by
so I don't know. But then lastly, or not lastly, but The Raiders, I think, are probably going to look the direction of Mike LaFleur, offensive coordinator for the Rams. I think that might be a look for them. But did you see, real quick, did you see the newest candidate for the Buffalo Bills?
I heard it was Phillip Rivers.
Oh,
It's the same as when they tried to get Josh McCown to go from high school. Like, how does he get a shot? And this is back. We don't talk about it as much now with black head coaches getting an opportunity because there are a lot of minority head coaches in the league, head coaching opportunities, getting second opportunities. I meant to verify this when I saw it, but Eric Bieniemy's back in KC. Or was that fake?
He is. No, it's
Okay.
true. Because Nagy was interviewing with Tennessee. And then now, last I saw, he's interviewing with Philly for their offensive coordinator job because his contract ran out. So they didn't fire him. His contract just expired.
Yeah. So I think a lot more minority coaches, black coaches especially, are getting opportunities. So, but I'm not even looking. I'm looking at like the Jeff Saturday thing. Like they fired a coach mid-season and brought Jeff Saturday from TV to the sideline as if there weren't former players on that staff that played with him that you didn't even give an opportunity to.
Like Reggie Wayne.
Reggie Wayne, so it's like, and people like you can make it a race thing. I'm just looking at it like, what did you put in? Like, yeah, you put in a lot of time as a football player, but how does that get you a better look than me, Mike LaFleur? I'm Matt's brother, and I drink coffee with McVay. That puts me at the top of everybody's list. How do you go from having kid number 10 throwing, 82 passes for the Colts, getting blown out, and then all of a sudden now you're going to be a head coach? It doesn't make any sense. And once again, it lends me to my point where Buffalo has an all-world talent at quarterback, albeit hasn't been able to deliver the big win in the playoffs, which, hey, it's the Achilles heel of a lot of great quarterbacks in their career. Maybe at some point they get over it. John Elway, yes, he was making Super Bowls, but he was getting dusted, and then he went to back-to-back, and they won, and he finally get the ride off as a champion, hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. And I'm saying it won't happen for Josh Allen, but next year you are resetting your timetable based off the skill level of your rookie head coach and not the superior skill level of your top tier quarterback. So you got to make a move with the guy that you can at least bank on him getting you to the playoffs.
All right. So last question is Mr. Virginia really retiring?
Mr. Mike Tomlin?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You did what, 22 years, right?
Yeah.
How'd you feel at 19?
The same way I felt at 14. Why am I still here?
Exactly. So he's like, all right, I've done this long enough. Like I said, you gotta keep in mind, like, and we can, I don't know how closely it relates, but we can relate in this aspect of you spend a lot of time working and your kids are young.
Right.
Like I did it. I deployed. My sons were 5 and 3, came back, created a human, deployed when he was 3 months old, like the following year. Mm-hmm. And then I deployed again a couple years later. Then PCS came here, deployed again 3 more times. Like I watched birthdays over Zoom, and the first time he crawled, it was like over a Zoom call, and graduations and plays. I was getting video clips. So, but I'm overseas, and that makes sense that I missed that stuff because I'm literally locked in one place in the Middle East. He just was in an office in Pittsburgh and didn't get to go to the Boston College scrimmage every single time he wanted to, or down to see his daughter doing so. Being able to do that now, I don't think you can pull him back. Be like, all right, now go sit in his office in Ohio and coach the Cleveland Browns. Like I don't see you being able to do that right now, especially at the age that his kids are now, because they're like past that 19 years that he was coaching. Now they're like young adults.
Mm-hmm.
2021. It's like, okay, I was coaching and doing all this other stuff your whole life. Now you're young adults and you're still competing. Now I can still show up. Like I like my current job because I can, do my job and I know that the clock stops and I can leave and go to my son's basketball game, or I can leave and pick my son up and we can go do something, or I can go, do something with my grandson. So my other son, like I know for a fact, like I can leave at that time. But if I worked some job in New York City, yeah, it could pay me $130,000 a year, 140, but I'm on the train, I'm missing mad stuff. So I think Tomlin's like, yeah, I'm locked into like just doing this. And then next week he'll get hired by some job, and then people on TikTok be like, "See, you were wrong." Like, bitch, I don't predict the future.
Well, we don't got to go into the future. Let's go into the present a little bit.
Yeah.
So does this apply to LeBron James?
What is it saying, Batman? If you're the hero, you play the hero long enough
to become the villain.
Become the villain. LeBron has played. He's done it long enough. Now he's the villain. I don't know when it switched, but I know that there is a bit of LeBron fatigue to the point where Isaiah Thomas said this on someone's podcast. I believe it was like Up in Smoke or something like that. All the smoke. He was like, you guys talk about LeBron as if he did nothing in his career. It was like when people compare him to Jordan, I get it. Like, Jordan could be your guy, but it's like, you talk about the guy as if he accomplished nothing in the entirety of his career. It's like the man is all-time points, minutes, playoff points, playoff.
They treating LeBron like Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah, so it's like, yo, the way you guys, and I think people in his corner, maybe there could be some yes man or whatever the case may be, but I think people around him are like, yo, dog, like, it is wild. Like I think it's wild the way people like bang on LeBron and like just shit on his career as if it's not one of the most defining careers in sports. It's not like he's like, I think people love Brandon Roy because it was like what could be. People love Greg Oden because of that. I think people love Derrick Rose for that same reason. I think people like Derrick Rose on a personal level too, but I think just people who weren't.
And Rachel
Bulls
Nichols
fans,
still owes him an apology.
People who weren't like Bulls fans and stuff like that, like they have like this affinity for him because it's just like they've seen him, they just like they don't know what his stats are. Like people don't know like where he ranks all time in assists and points, but people know where LeBron is, and I think they just are just kind of sick of the fact that just like kind of in their face. But it's like in the same sense, it's like, yo, this is what accomplishment looks like. But as far as Jeanie Buss and the Lakers, it might have worn thin, but I think he had leverage in 2018 after the Cleveland years because he's still like that 2018 LeBron. Like I still feel is like top tier. Like what he did when they trade the whole team away to trade deadline, and then he goes in that tear through the playoffs, and then game one against the Monstars still goes 51-8-8, and they lose because like somebody else, like J.R. Smith could have put the ball back up, or George could have made the free throw. So I think he felt he had more leverage. I think he had a lot of leverage then, and I believe he's kind of operating like the leverage is still close to that, and I don't think it is.
So I think the problem is I don't think LeBron's ungrateful, first of all. But what I will say, and I can say this now because we're not talking about a GOAT conversation, but yeah. I think one of the things people loved about Michael Jordan was he just came to work and did what he did. He showed up, he played basketball, he dropped 50 on you, he smiled and chewed the hell out of that gum like Pete Carroll, and he just moved on. Then he had the iconic shoes. I don't like them, but everybody else do. So, but with LeBron, you get all the extra stuff, and part of that is the era, right? Social media, right. 24-hour news cycles, and so on and so forth, which is not his fault, But you get a lot of that. Hey, Clutch is running the league. You get a lot of that, like Rich Paul is running his mouth about trading Austin Reeves, like, or like, oh, LeBron really didn't know that AD was getting traded. And now you got Rich Paul out here yesterday talking about, I'm demanding that the Mavericks trade Anthony Davis by next week. So they look at that, even though that's Rich Paul saying that stuff, people look at that as an extension of LeBron. Right. And and I don't really have a reason to say that they're wrong. Now, I'm not saying that it's all correct either, because nothing is 100%. But you know what I'm saying? But there's something to that,
Whoever makes the report, whoever gets the interview from the person is probably someone they're familiar with. So the story will lean towards the tone of the person that they are interviewing, because that's your familiarity.
Right.
Like if I was telling a story that you told me, I'm not going to make you look bad in that story.
Yeah. So I don't know if inside the Laker, inside the organization, inside the locker room, there is the whole, hey, you came here, you wanted AD. We went and got that for you. You know what I mean? Won the championship. Thank you so much for bringing us back to relevance, because, there was a long time in between those championships. Then, we went out.
And it was and on top of that, it was a lot of bad basketball. It wasn't just they didn't win a championship. Like Tom Brady didn't win a championship with the Patriots for 10 years.
But they were always
a lot
in the
of
mix.
Great football. It was a lot of records being broken. They went 18-1 in one of those years. He got injured and they still went like 10-6 MVPs. It was great football. It just wasn't Super Bowl championship.
Right.
It was bad basketball, bad draft picks, bad trades, bad injuries, bad management, bad coaching. All kinds of stuff went wrong with the Lakers in that stretch when they weren't winning.
Right. So then, you haven't really been contending since then. You made the Western Conference Finals once after that, where they lost to the Nuggets. But then, okay, now it's draft time. We go get your son for you. You know what I mean? And now, this is where the story, from my view, gets a little conflated, because he's old now. You know what I mean? But you're looking at him like, oh, you're not going to play defense? Oh, you're not going to hustle right now? Oh, you're not going to do these? Like, we went out and did these things for you. You sitting out games now? You know what I mean? But he's old. You know what I mean? So, so I think part of it, and this is the part where I've been kind of with you, but then we start to veer a little bit, is that LeBron is the type of dude that hasn't been told no a lot. You know what I mean? Like, outside of Pat Riley, a lot of these teams have acquiesced and bent over to his demands or his request or whatever he might have asked for. And of course, that's speculation.
It converts, but it's to yes and, so we're not. He has delivered all the things a team, like the basketball players and coaches need, and what the owners need. So in his mind, like, granted, you need like a world-class arbitrator for a conversation between LeBron and his team versus the teams that he's played for, because each side can argue, we acquiesced to this request, we got you this, we got you that, we did this, we traded that, we paid you this, we paid him that. They can say all that. He was like, hey, Cleveland, hey, Miami, 4 years in a row, your arena was sold out. And you can charge whatever you wanted for these prices. If you want to charge $30,000 for every front row seat, you could do that, because I was getting us to the finals. Granted, it's help, but I was getting us to the finals 4 years in a row. So you made billions off of me being here. Hey, LA. No, hey, Cleveland. I came back when you disrespected me, when I played out my contract and I left, and you had people in the city burning my jersey and putting it on TV.
Yeah, I wouldn't have went back.
And changing the price of my fat head to $17.39, because that was the year Benedict Arnold was born, shit like that. I came back. I got you 4 more finals. I got a chip. And then hey, LA, you were playing terrible basketball for 8 years. It was terrible. Even with Kobe, the teams were awful. The coaching was awful. The teams were awful. Your attendance is up because it's LA. You had Kobe, but you guys were playing terrible basketball. I come here, tear my groin, we regroup. I get a chip. Same thing. You can charge $50,000 for those courtside seats, or $1 million for the all access stuff. And the team value, especially for the Lakers, in 2018 was $3.3 billion. Now, I know all the team evaluations and all the sports went up exponentially since 2018 till 2025, 2026. I get it. I don't know how many of them went up $6.7 billion, though.
Right.
So Jeanie Buss can call them ungrateful if she wants. But her dad didn't spend that much money buying the team, and they sold it for $10 billion off of the strength of when he got there, it was $3.3 billion, and you sold it for 10. So you call them ungrateful if you want. But if you're so ungrateful, run back some of that $6.7 billion to the city of Los Angeles then. You're not going to do that, then don't get out there and call them ungrateful.
So are you essentially saying that Jeanie Buss is the ungrateful one?
No, I'm just saying, you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
All right.
You already know that's the case. It's like if you are a TV show and you book Mariah Carey to come be at your TV show, she's notorious for having these crazy writers. She wants 150 red M&Ms, 200 red Skittles. She wants a room to charge her cell phone in. She wants a dressing room for each one of her dancers. She wants Dom Perignon and these kind of crystal glass. You know that already. She's notorious for that. So if you book her to come and do your show and get mad that she asked for 100 fucking M&Ms and 100 bags, 100 Skittles and all sorts of stuff, like you knew that going into it.
Right.
But you reap the benefits because you could put on your marquee Mariah Carey 2 nights sold out.
And I like LeBron's response. You know, he just simply said, I don't care what people think about me. You know, 10 years ago, he probably would have dragged this. So, you know, I'm glad he just kept it simple. She went and backtracked it, but some things you just can't take back. Mr. Logical, you know what I saw today? I saw the Steinline report that there are discussions going on sending Jonathan Kuminga to Miami for Andrew Wiggins.
You know how people ask, how do GMs get hired?
They know people.
What qualifications do they have? They just know people. They might have played the sport at some level. Either they played at, you know, Fairleigh Dickinson University, and some guy on that team became an investor, and now he's in the investment group for the Warriors, and now you get a job interview because you guys been college buddies.
Right.
Or your dad was a coach and you get the job, or you played at Duke and this other guy played at North Carolina, and it was like you guys got this little rivalry that goes all the way back, and you just get an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because there's no just play Kuminga. I mean,
they did, and he hurt his ankle last night.
I mean, if you let him get some more run, his ankles would be stronger.
And he got the little girl. He took the little girl's seat, you know. He hurt his ankle and then sat in her seat. Look, I'm of the opinion of they shouldn't have never got rid of Wiggins in the first place. No, not yet, Riz. And you know, so I think that I understand you're trying to make a move that you think is going to get you closer to a championship, but that move does not exist at this point. You know, unless you're getting Giannis, you know, like I don't think you're getting Giannis right now.
Yeah, I think someone needs to just kind of tell.
What up, Mike?
30 NBA teams.
Yes.
Someone needs to sit down with the star, the GM, and the head coach, maybe even the owner of about 24 of those teams, and tell them, listen, dog, you have no shot at winning a championship. So just play with the roster you have, entertain the hell out of your fans, shoot a lot of threes, dunk the ball. I mean, maybe bring up a good G League feel-good story and give them a 10-day contract so you can make ESPN for a while. But 24 of 30 of you do not have a shot whatsoever. And of the remaining 6, 4 of you have a long shot.
Well, that's the problem.
Well,
Is
three.
because
We'll say three of you have a long shot, and three
well,
of
you
you maybe
got
have a real shot at
Wardell.
winning this championship.
Well, you got Wardell out there, and this is old man Wardell. So you only got a couple of more years of Wardell left anyway. So I think this is the problem. This is the thing with NBA teams is that, and of course, this is one of those 2-5 things. You know what I'm saying? They could easily have, or in the future, trade Steph Curry to get picks and start it all over. But they ain't going to do that because you're going to ride that wave. You talked about the $18 hot dogs. Yeah, Steph is old. He's at least 36.
Yeah, he's like, even if he's not old by our standard, being like damn near 45, he's old for the expectations that you have surrounded. Like for the
he's 37. Actually, he be 38 in March.
Yeah, that's
38 old. In March. He's old. You know what I mean? And this is a guy that we're talking about that has ankle problems on top of that too. And
even healthy is like, it's only so much you can do with, like, it takes a village, and sometimes you don't have all the expertise in your village. Yeah, you got some people that can really hang up some huts and somebody that can really start a fire. But it's like, you don't have anybody that can really hunt and bring food to the fire. You eat a lot of soup. Like, that's what you have. And I think that's what most of these teams have. Like you said, they have a piece in Steph that could have been a reload piece, but that would require someone else neutral that works inside the organization to say,
and you don't want to be the
Draymond,
person like
Steph, Steve, Clay's gone. Like, matter of fact, before Clay even left, listen, man, we shutting this all down.
And that's the thing, right? Like Mike Dunleavy he's done a pretty poor job since he took over as GM. But I would also argue that his previous GMs didn't leave him with a lot to work with either, from that standpoint of Bob Myers got everything running. He got Clay, he brought in Draymond, people, and these guys weren't like, I guess, ballyhooed guys in the draft where they were they weren't can't miss, people or whatever, but they definitely, I think he was the one that made the comment, we're always a step ahead of the league or whatever he said, something along those lines. So Golden State had that, but eventually, all this stuff comes to an end. Even LeBron, we're seeing it now, as good as he's playing, this is the end. So the problem is that you're holding on too long because you got this star, you want to sell tickets, and now you have this pressure of, we can't just have him out here playing basketball. He has to have a reason. Yes, you're right. He should have traded. Draymond should have been traded 3 years ago, maybe even 4. But it's just,
realistically, after the 2022 championship,
they should have broke it up.
That was the moment to say. And I know people give we talk about The Last Dance and that GM and like just having Jordan having all the problems, but in the same sense, it was like, maybe this guy was really laying the blueprint going forward, because if you look at it, every superstar has done it on their own. Like, they have left teams when they saw the championship window close. It's just that teams don't do it because it hasn't been a lot of success with teams rebuilding. Like, because I think Detroit's doing a great job of it now after they've had like a long run of bad basketball. I think Orlando's adequate. They're playing like really good, above average basketball. It's not enough to get them the meteoric rise that Golden State got when they went on that, when they won 67 games that year, when Steph kind of emerged. Even though he's on average like 23 points that year, he kind of emerged as like a real player.
Right.
But once again, like, I don't think it was a matter of like him doing something after Jordan, but instead of keeping Jordan and signing these big contracts, keeping Pippen signing these big contracts, overpaying Phil Jackson for the 6 rings that they had before, it's like, listen, this can't last that long. And I think we've had anomalies in sports. I bring up Tom Brady and LeBron as the anomalies. It's like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers and some like Tiger Woods, when he had his resurgence, winning the Masters after 40 and ACL tears. And it's like, oh, these guys can these guys are superior athletes. They can play forever. It fades, and you have to be willing to just say, this is going to fade in 2 years. So let you go somewhere where you can fill in.
But you also don't want to be remembered. You also don't want to be remembered as the guy that traded Steph Curry, the guy that traded LeBron, the guy that traded. You don't want to be that guy.
You're not going to be remembered anyway because you're just a GM. You're worrying about your place.
Hey, we're still talking about Jerry Krause, 30 years later.
Because the Last Dance came out.
Oh, people were still talking about him. But anyway.
But he was associated with the greatest, sports person of the 20th century.
So that's the thing, because we're running into the same issue with Milwaukee, where Giannis is younger than Steph, obviously, but management. You went out and got Dame Lillard, and unfortunately, you can't predict ACL tears and that type, or Achilles and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
So they still got Dame's money on the books. So there's only so much that they can do because they're still paying him, and he's still on the cap, I guess. So they're trying to get like a Ja Morant, Anthony Davis. Those aren't the answers, but you have to show Giannis, or Steph, or whoever we're trying. And that's where, just get me out of here.
Indiana, get Mathurin, Neesmith, couple of picks, maybe what's the boy?
They weren't, but they tried.
The light-skinned guy, Nembhard.
Yeah.
So call Indiana, listen, y'all want Giannis? Give us Nembhard, Neesmith, Mathurin. Start over with your two. You get your. It doesn't. It sounds. It doesn't sound like. It doesn't sound great now, but let's think about what Oklahoma City got for Paul George. They got SGA, Danilo Gallinari, and a bunch of random first and potentially second round picks over the course of 5 or 6 years. Which,
and that's what I'm saying. Golden State could have did that.
One of them can be a top 5 pick.
They could have traded Steph 2 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. So, if you're Milwaukee's GM and you're looking at Golden State, you could do the same thing. Just get, even if Indiana only wants to give you a couple of those guys, get a few first round picks, because Giannis only has a few years left. So give me the 2031, 2032, 2033 picks. That gives me 5 or 6 years to figure out what we got here. And then when Indiana kind of falls apart, when all of those pieces have to go, because they're going to have to reload at some point, now you have their picks, maybe 2029 to keep it a little closer, 29, 30, 31. Give me those first round picks. I'll give you Giannis, those 3 first round picks, Mathurin, and Neesmith.
Well,
and just call it a game and call it a day and make it work. But if you try to drag this out thinking you're going to get some Luka-like deal, you're going to get Anthony Davis, you're going to get a some kind of perennial all-star, you're not. Detroit's not giving you Cade Cunningham. Memphis is not giving you Ja Morant. Miami's not giving you Powell and Tyler Hero and some picks. New York's not giving you Jalen Brunson and Cat, or Josh Hart and Cat. These deals aren't out there because it doesn't benefit those teams. You have to go to these teams that are you know what? We got some young talent. We got some injured talent that's coming back. Maybe we can mix Giannis in here. We get the rest of this season and next season. What can we do?
We'll see.
Someone has to be in the room and say, listen, that's not going to work. Take that PowerPoint down. Skip that. Who came up with that? Yeah, you can leave the room. That's not going to work. Give me a more realistic trade where we might not have the top end deal up front, but it's 2028, 2029, this deal is going to pay dividends.
Yeah. So, there you go. And the trade deadline is less than 2 weeks away. So that is going to be ramping up here soon. But Mr. Logical, it's time to, get back to this litigation. Darian Mensah and Duke going to court. We had one ruling. They were supposed to have a hearing on February 2nd. It's been moved up to January 29th. But the ruling was you can enter the portal, but you can't enroll or sign with another school until after the hearing, once we review everything. So it's no longer a secret that Miami's the team in play here. So I think we just end up at a point where Miami ends up paying because 10 million was the number that was being thrown
I think
around.
the 10 million, and I think part of like the first report that I read was that the 10 million, part of that was essentially like a buyout,
right? And that's what I was
get
going to
him
get
out
to
of Duke.
because see, like, and that's the thing. That's why we need rules, right? Because with coaches, even though we get upset that these coaches move all around and do all the things, and they get to live on with their life, and the players don't. That's I think that's the difference, is that the coaches have these buyouts, so they're forfeiting money to go take these other jobs. Whereas the players, I guess, seem to think, I'm going to get this money and I'm a roll. Because with Darian Mensah in particular, he signed a 2-year deal. Nobody cares if you sign a 1-year deal with Duke, you got your money and now you move on, right?
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, that's just good agent, Mike. You know what I'm saying? But with the players,
Because he was contractually obligated to get that. That was
right. It was in the contract,
rule
right?
paid him $55 million. It wasn't like he didn't negotiate that on his way out. The rule in place per the contract had the buyout at
right.
$55 million.
But
the
there
buyout was
comes the point.
$105 million. They were like, "Hey, we're gonna give you 12."
And see, but this is where we can't have it both ways, though, because in one breath, like when we talk about the professional sports, we say these teams ain't fair to players. They'll cut you, move on, all this kind of stuff, right? So in this scenario, he signed a 2-year deal, and it wasn't an NIL contract. It was some kind of incentive lease thing. It wasn't exactly NIL, but it was basically going to pay him $4 million. You know what I'm saying? But we can compare because he still signed something. You know what I'm saying? If you sign something, you honor that.
I think the problem with what he signed is that it's, if I wrote a contract that said you're going to join the Air Force, like me, I wrote it today on my computer, ChatGPT. I made up a contract, gave it to you, and signed it. But it's not linked to the actual Air Force. It's like, yeah, he signed this document. I think the problem is because there's almost no rules with NIL,
right?
They're going to argue that you can't.
Well, you know how you get somebody to honor it? You make them honor it.
Like, you can't sign an NIL deal because there's no NIL rule. So there's no reference to reference.
So we saw
signed a promissory note basically with us to stay here for 2 years,
right?
And I think it's probably like the level, like what's legally binding. It's like, is a handshake legally binding? Because without the backing of some kind of law, then this paper he signed is essentially just a paper version of a handshake,
right? But I also think that Duke doesn't care if he gets into the portal during peak portal, where there were still quarterbacks out there and they could go get another quarterback. You know what I mean? Versus waiting to the very last day of being able to enter the portal, and now all the quarterbacks are taken. And that's not his problem. That's not his problem.
We want to make sure people coming here going forward don't try to rake us over the coals like this.
Right, because we saw with Damon Williams, right?
Precedence. Yeah, you see the legal precedence.
With Damon Williams, he signed the deal, I think it was January 2nd, and then 2 days later, he entered the portal. And it was like, hey, we just put $4 million on the table for you. You can't just up and leave. You know what I mean? Like, because we don't pay you, because that's what people were saying. Like, oh, but if they don't let him join the portal, what players are going to want to come to Washington? If a player don't want to come here because he agreed to take $4 million and he bounced, then that's on
school that's Nike sponsored and has great history and it's going to give you opportunity to play and maybe even get drafted, a la Roma Dunze and Michael Penix in the first round, the last couple of drafts. That's a different thing. And I think that's the issue. Like I said, I always reference my own son. Talking to him about how he wants to go about his future is like, okay, I think you have the plan you have in your head and the way you're seeing it is the way I would teach it to you. So I'm gonna stay out of the way. Like if he was coming to me saying, "Hey, listen, I'm not going anywhere unless they give me $1 million," I'm gonna be like, "Listen, son, the $1 million deal is not for everybody. It's just even if you are that top tier talent, it's not a lot of $1 million deal. We hear about the $1 million deals because they're so crazy. Like if you think about the NBA and how those contracts are, it's guys in the NBA making 18, 19, $20 million who probably average 8 points and 2 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so common, we don't hear about it. We hear about the 60 million that Steph gets and the 60 million that LeBron and all these other guys get because that's so crazy. The million we're hearing about is because that's an anomaly. That's an outlier. That's not what everybody gets leaving high school. So the fact that he has his head on straight thinking that way, the problem is I think some of these guys are just enamored with the money and they're chasing the money. And I get it. Get your money. Just go get your own lawyer. Don't be cheap. Don't let an agent say going to take care of everything for you because no one outside of your flesh and bone is going to take care of everything for you. That's not how the world works.
And like I said, I don't think they care if it was just a 1 year thing, if it was a year-to-year thing. You know what I mean? Like from the standpoint of, he signed to play here or whatever. Now the season is over. You're free to do what you want. You committed. Well, you can call it what you want, but you committed 2 years to us. And then on the very last day of the portal, you tried to ditch us. You know what I'm saying? And now we can't replace you. Now, if it was the other way, hold on, real quick. If it was the other way around and Duke had dumped him, the last day of the portal, they go to him and say, yo, you got to go. We bringing in this quarterback. We'd be having a whole different conversation right now. This school is wrong. How could they do that to him? That's what's wrong is that they, so we can't have it both ways.
Yeah. And to Mike's point, it's not about,
I ain't got to hold the coach to the standard because I'm going to get money back.
It's like, it's not about, because you're getting money. Now there's no rules and you could just be reckless because you're getting money. You have to be cautious because you're getting money and because you're getting that large sum of money, you have to understand like there's an obligation with that money. There is an attachment with that money. There's a responsibility that comes along with that money. That money doesn't allow you to act with your feelings. That money doesn't allow you to just be like, oh, I feel like this other school's going to give me more money. I'm leaving. No, we gave you this money. You're going to be here because you signed to be here. You took the money. I'm not saying these guys can't get their money, but in the same sense, it's like if you wanted to leave, get your legal advice in place. It might be a way for him to get out of that Duke obligation.
Yeah, we'll see. It might. I mean, I think he's going to end up in Miami. But there might just be you got to pay this back
and filling out the paperwork, going to the coach and just saying I'm going to the portal is like, yo, we invested literally a lot of time and money into you. Like you got to give us something. Like Red said, Duke is setting a precedent to where it's not a free market if you are restricted via contract. That's not the same thing. It's a free market when you're a free agent. Hence why the word free is in it.
But see, I think you're doing this comparison thing. That's the problem.
It's not the same. They're not in the same realm.
Just because one person commits a wrong doesn't mean that we should excuse another wrong. You know what I mean? Like Mensah is doing what he's supposed to do. I think that he's going to end up at Miami, and I think that Miami's going to give him a certain amount of money. And I just said that, Mike, a certain amount of money. And I think that Miami's going to end up basically paying Duke.
They're going to pay, Duke, like the buyout clause. That's why.
No, they don't. Okay, so Mike, if you sign a contract today with ESPN, you think you could just leave tomorrow and go work for Fox because you want to? Like nobody's calling anybody a slave. You know what I'm saying? You signed it, you honor it, unless
you signed the deal.
Yeah, unless
it's the same way if you.
And that's why we're going to court. I think he's still going to get the Miami
business. Like if you're running a business and your business was like, hey, this is a wedding hall and we are the florists, and they signed a contract with us and say, hey, every wedding we do, we're going to come to you for the flowers. Anybody that books us to say, hey, can you guys get my flowers? You can break it. It takes pay. Like I'll use like the military because we deploy a lot. You can use your military orders to break your lease. But other than that, there's a paragraph in the lease that said if you want to leave early, you have to pay the rent until the apartment gets filled because you
was that
are here.
contract $4 million? Because what the contract says for him is that the only NIL that he is eligible to receive has to come from Duke University.
But listen.
That's why they're going to court. So they do.
Think about the key word. I want you to think about the key word in that statement, Mike. You said I broke a contract. That means you broke away from something. That means you tore down something that was standard. No, it's not the military. I'm talking about the apartment complex. You gotta listen with your ears and not just listen to regurgitate. I said the apartment complex will let you out of your lease anywhere you live if you're going to deploy. So you just show them the orders. But if you just want to straight up leave that apartment complex for just you don't like the drive, then you have to come up with some money. But if you have another obligation, that's a different thing. But if you break a contract, breaking is not a clean split up. It's not we negotiated a separation. You said you broke a contract. So that means you had something in place that you had to break down. Duke is saying you can't break this contract without us getting either some kind of compensation for it or a real heads up. He's going to get paid, no doubt.
I think I think he's going to end up
because there's no rules with NIL. Duke is arguing like, yo, we need to get something in the court system so the next time we sign a guy to a deal and he tries the same thing, because we talked, you said Demond Williams did it like 2 weeks ago in Washington. So Duke, like I said, Duke's a school full of smart lawyers. They understand, like, listen, we don't care if he leaves. We just can't be like, you know what, whatever. Like Dabo Swinney did when they had the guy that went from Cal to Clemson.
Yeah, we were just about to talk about that.
He just went to Ole Miss. It was like they just let him go. Duke's like, no, we're not doing that. We putting something on paper. That way we can reference it the next time this happens, especially if you get enough judges to sign off on it or a certain level of a judge to sign off on it. Now you have your precedent. They'll still let them go, and they'll take whatever buyout money Miami negotiates, and they'll be good to go. So, like, no one's a slave in the situation. It's like you signed up to say you're going to be somewhere, and then you decided to go somewhere else because of you felt the grass was greener. Like, listen, okay, cool. We just want to make sure either you honor this contract if you don't want to, or you financially compensate us for the fact that now we have to jump through hoops, personally, professionally, and financially, to replace what you did because you decided to leave for more money.
Right. And I was going to bring up the Clemson thing as an aside. You know, Dabo went scorched earth on Pete Golden in the Ole Miss program today. And you know, it goes back to what we were just saying. There's no rules. So, you know, Luke Farrelly, he signed with Clemson from Cal. And then Ole Miss was like, I don't care. And they just kept trying to get him anyway. And eventually he left, you know, so he's at Ole Miss now. And, you know, so this is where when there are no rules, you have to create rules. You know what I mean? So a lot of these things is just short-sightedness on the NCAA and these colleges because they either didn't take into account that these things were going to happen or they just didn't care at the time until it affected them. So now, you know what I'm saying, like we're going to start seeing, I think, some of these rules in place where it is going to mirror professional sports in some ways. And I would argue that it more or less needs to be more like these dudes are employees because
the employees come.
That's the problem, right? That's the problem. The benefits,
disability benefits, Medicaid, FICA, Social Security.
So they're still trying to fight to save money, is what it boils down to, and that's why they won't make them
NIL rules, like NIL rules, transfer portal rules, real dates, and then real punishments. Case in point, you can't just unenroll from a school and then re-enroll in another school that you were trying to go through the transfer portal with and then walk on and then they pay you. You know, so it's like there's always going to be ways around it. And like we talked about, once again, reference that Jay Paterno conversation. He's like, there's always going to be ways around it. I think Duke is recognizing that this is one way that guys are getting out of their NIL deals that they sign, and we kind of expect you to be around. And you're wiggling out of it. they may lose, they may win, but I think ultimately it's in the best interest of Duke. And if I'm another college football team, just looking at it from that vantage point, I'm like, I'm rooting for Duke because that way at least I can reference a rule. I can reference something legally. So
and that's what I'm saying with the Clemson thing for Ole Miss, a school tampering with your players and, going after, their players or whatever. That's where there needs to be punishments. Like we see it, in the NBA where, what was it? Magic Johnson just said Giannis's name and the NBA came down with a fine or whatever the case may be. So in a situation like this, how you stop teams from Ole Miss from doing these things? You take scholarships away. You know what I'm saying? You take, you fine them.
But you need a rule to reference.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. And I think that's what's going to have to happen.
I think Duke is just one of those schools that football is not their breadwinner. Basketball is more their highlighted athletic event. But academics is primary in Duke. I didn't know until I was like late in my high school career when my friends were applying to schools that like how tough it was academically to get into schools like Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, UNC, Duke. I didn't know about like all the SAT requirements and the AP level and all sort of stuff. So Duke at its core is an academic institution. And they're just saying, you know what? It's a lot like what Northwestern did first. Before the money was important, Northwestern, a school that produced a lot of journalists, a lot of lawyers, said, let's unionize. Let's put legal precedent in front of universities so we as a student body and the student athletes can profit. Then the NCAA was like, cool, just throw money at it because we need entertainment. So you throw money at entertainment. People are trying to set a precedence with law. They were like, okay, cool, we'll throw some money at it, but let's get some stamps and some signatures from some circuit court judges and say, hey, you can't do this.
Right.
Another one might say you can, but at least I have this piece to argue the next time some guy walks into my office and wants to transfer out when he has, 24 months left on his Duke University athletic obligation.
Yeah, and Pete Golding, in this situation, he's lost a lot. I don't know if he cares or not, but just from the public, because remember, like Ole Miss was the victim here.
Ole Miss was the darling for about 3.5 weeks. Like Mike still bringing up Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is a weaselly little guy anyway. He just seems to always have that kind of reputation. But once again, if you don't care, the news cycle will pass you by.
Yeah.
Like if you don't respond, if you just keep Lane Kiffin is going to keep grabbing whatever top tier recruit or top tier college athlete that's in the portal that went to a party.
Yeah, guess who got the #1 portal class?
He's going to keep doing it, and that's because that's what he wants to do. Because he knows at the end of the day, the bottom line is dollars and wins.
Right.
And either you got to spend $1 to get the wins, or you get the wins, you get more dollars to buy more wins. And it's a vicious cycle. And people saying college football is ruined. It's like, listen, the money used to be in manila envelopes and convenience stores.
Saying that, but these ratings keep going up.
The ratings go up. I played NCAA for the last 2 nights, just kind of getting a couple of games in. A lot of people playing with Indiana all of a sudden. So it's not like people are oblivious to what's going on in college sports. And we all knew that the money was being moved around. We always knew the money was impactful because football is football. If you're a good football player, you could be anywhere. But if I can pay to ensure that I get 22 to 26 of the top 100 football players on my team, I'm probably going to do pretty well.
Yeah. And so like now, we get into the actual football, the season is going to be coming with some new playoff rules, nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary, except for a little bit of DEI, saying. So you got now we're going to stay with 12 teams for the upcoming season. So that stays the same. What changes is All 4 conference champions from the Power 4 get automatic bids. So what that means is Duke would have been in the playoff this year. You know what I mean? With 5 losses. You know what I mean? Then one G5 team. One G5 champion in the playoff. The other part we talked about Notre Dame. If they go to 14 or 16, as long as Notre Dame is top 14, they have a spot. Now that we're staying at 12, DEI Irish get to play if they're in the top 12 automatically. So they could bump somebody out.
So we got 4 automatically. Is the G5
we got 5 automatically. Yes, the G5 is automatic.
G5 is automatic no matter what.
Yes.
G5, 7 and 5, JMU is automatic.
Automatic.
Okay.
And
so Notre Dame this year is automatic.
So let me read this excerpt. It says, quote, while the number of teams in the field will remain the same this fall, there will be some adjustments to how some are included. This season, the Power 4 conference champions will be guaranteed spots in the 12-team field, along with the highest-ranked conference champion from the group of 6, which now includes the new look Pac-12. Notre Dame will also be a lock for the playoff if it finishes in the selection committee's top 12.
So the Notre Dame still has to get voted in at 12.
Yes, they still have to be top 12, but if they're 12, they're in. You know what I mean? Because remember, like, it doesn't go necessarily 1 for 1 because your conference champion could be number 16 or something along those lines.
So if the conference champion is 16, and let's say you got a 10-2 South Carolina at 11, that conference champion gets in. Yeah. Notre Dame gets in because Notre Dame's 12, and South Carolina somehow would just kind of be pushed out because.
Well, I mean,
Notre Dame has the deal.
They probably wouldn't kick out an SEC team,
I'm just saying, like somehow, like it just. If you think
but theoretically, yes.
So you got the top 4. So the top 4 power. So SEC,
but the power
SEC,
champions, but the conference champions don't have
Big
to be
12,
top 4. Yeah.
Okay, so SEC, Big 12, Big 10,
ACC.
Uh-huh. Then G5. Wherever that is. So like this year it would have been Tulane. Tulane was higher than JMU.
Yeah,
right?
It would have been Tulane, yeah.
Would have been Tulane. And then Notre Dame if they're 12.
Right. They're in.
So that's essentially 6 spots because their schedule is pretty light, and it will be light every year.
Yeah, so they do. Notre Dame does play Miami again this year, So
then you're gonna get one more Big 12 team,
maybe,
and then the new look Pac-12 is considered a G5 until they can prove themselves.
Well, I think they're just going to be a G5 because of the schools involved. But yeah,
okay. So that means you get 2 more Big 10 teams. That gets us to I'm at 9.
And then you fill out 3 more SEC teams. I mean, they got 5 this year.
SEC teams, yeah.
They got 5 this year. So but those are the changes. I'm not sure. I definitely don't like the Notre Dame rule. And not only that, Mike, not only have the SEC not won a championship, they haven't even played for the title.
I don't think their run is over. I think their demise has been like highly exaggerated.
What they were doing, it was just like we talked about the Warriors, right? It was going to end at some point. Like you can't just.
I think with the SEC, like I think Saban was like, I'm done with the NIL stuff. They do have a propensity to kind of eat each other. Like, because the talent is there with every team. We can't deny that the first and second round of NFL draft for the last 10 years has been just flooded with SEC talent. Your favorite player on your team is probably an SEC talent. Texas, Bijan Robinson, SEC. James Pierce, SEC. Jalen Walker, SEC. Xavier Watts, Oklahoma, SEC. So, like, even my own team is like all of our best rookies are from the SEC. You can't go wrong if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles defense. 7 of those guys are from the SEC. So their run isn't over. It's just that there's talented football players everywhere. I think the thing that helped Indiana is having a lot of 23-year-olds on their team. And it helped to have a good coach too. But it helps a lot. The transfer portal does help because it makes it easy. Because if I'm a 5-star recruit out of whatever state and I end up at LSU, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, anywhere in the SEC, and I don't play, I know for a fact they're bringing in another top-tier guy from some other school. Like the best wide receiver in Tulsa can hit the portal and end up in the SEC. So
Right.
if I'm a guy who came straight out of high school or prep school, whatever, or I redshirted, and I'm an SEC talent, I know Ohio State's going to call. I know Texas Tech is going to call. I know, USC is going to call. Michigan's going to call. I'm going to get another opportunity. So you're going to get SEC talent. It's just going to go other places. They will be back. Like, I don't think they really left.
Yeah. All right. So now we have on the screen here, this is ESPN's Too Early Top 25. Anything that automatically catches your eye.
I mean, I like the names. TCU's higher than I would expect. Penn State's higher than I would expect. Alabama's lower than I expect. I think Alabama at your way too early top 25 at 21. It doesn't pair well. Just like 21 for Iowa makes sense. And like you're way too early. I just feel like Alabama just
Alabama is also
so
they're starting over with another quarterback again. You know what I mean?
I mean, I get that, but every college team every year starts over with
no, but what was the one thing that we talked about this year? Remember earlier we were talking about how the Steelers didn't look like the Steelers. When was the last time you saw Bama not be able to run the ball? You know what I mean? Like,
but once again, I don't think that was a quarterback play because I watched a few of those games. Their running backs ran like linebackers. The running backs weren't. If you think about it, like let's get like a really top. Like a really good NFL running back, like
Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor will get to the line of scrimmage, shuffle his feet, cone drill style, and just jump cut to the open hole, and then get 8 to 11 yards when it's available. I watched a few Oklahoma games, the Oklahoma games. I watched both of those for Bama, and then after you told me like the stat, and I was like, really, that seems odd. And I watched the game. Their running backs aren't natural running backs. I think their running backs were just bigger, stronger, faster than guys when they were in high school. And if the play was to go through the B gap, they just hit the B gap. And it just was always open. And now they're one-on-one with the linebacker, and they can just muscle that guy up. But it was a lot of plays where the running backs just weren't hitting the holes. I think you get a running back what's the boy that was in Notre Dame that was high Singleton? That's
Penn State. Yeah, no, Notre Dame was Jeremiah Love.
Jeremiah Love, or if you get a guy like that in the backfield that can hit the hole or make a hole, then I think Alabama.
Hey, on a side note,
it was a quarterback.
And on a side note, in the NFL draft coming up, Notre Dame might have the first 2 running backs taken, but that's a whole nother conversation. But the first thing that stood out to me when I looked at this, because I know people were calling me a hater all year. And, when I was just telling the truth and it played out just like I said it would, 3 losses for the Texas Longhorns. But I think next year is going to be the year that people expected from Texas this year.
I think them 2 is too high.
I like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got Arch with a year of experience now as a full-time starter. They went out and got Hollywood Smothers in the transfer portal,
What a
who,
great name.
I think is a top 5 or 6 running back in the country. They went and got Cam Coleman, who I think we would be hearing him in conversations with Jeremiah Smith if he played somewhere other than Auburn. So I think the dynamic that Texas didn't have last year, they went out and got. Oregon is the team that stands out to me. That might be a little too high.
What is Dylan Raiola going to do? Is he going to stay at Oregon behind Dante
Well, yeah, he's coming off the ACL anyway. So, who knows if he'll even be ready, when the season starts. But Oregon is not only, got that question to answer, but they're losing both coordinators. Both coordinators went and became head
tougher.
coaches.
To me, that's tougher than starting a new quarterback. Because I think so many teams, just by the nature of either transfer portal or graduation or the peak year of your quarterback, because most of those guys take a couple years, because even Joe Burrow's year before he exploded was a pretty average year, and then he exploded and went from a fifth round evaluation to the first overall pick. So starting over with a new quarterback is like, I wouldn't really put a lot of stock into that. Starting over with 2 new coordinators, I think that's a little different.
And they were promoted from within.
At that.
Yeah. So these are guys that don't have a lot of experience, generally speaking. They do have Dante Moore, who might end up being the best quarterback in the country next year. So that's a good place to start from.
You think he went back because he didn't want to be a Jet, or he just felt like 19 starts wasn't enough?
I think that he went back because he didn't want to be a Jet, but I also don't like him going back. You know what I mean? Because things just tend to happen. There's somebody, it's escaping me right now, but there was a quarterback that recently just went back as Carson Beck. His stock.
I don't think Carson Beck's stock was that high at all.
Oh, it was though. I don't know if he would have been.
I think the conversation was high, but if you kind of looked at what I was like, I didn't see it.
No, I agree with you that I didn't see it, but it was being talked about. Ohio
Drew
State.
I think Drew Aller might have been last year.
Yeah, he came off the
not
injury.
This past season, but if he would have come out, if they would have beaten Notre Dame in that playoff game, I think he would probably been, because he's a prototype, 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, he's basically Josh Allen. A lot of people get compared to Josh Allen, but he's actually probably Josh Allen.
Yeah, I like Miami at 8. I think Miami's going to lose a lot of guys because I believe a lot of them waited.
I agree.
I don't know if they had exemptions for the transfer portal. I saw Malachi Toney was looking to leave.
No, I think he's staying. They are going to lose
LSU or Ole Miss or something like some. It was Ohio State, I believe it was.
Yeah, Bain and Messador are gone. But they just brought in Damian Wilson, from Missouri. He was the guy that had the drama with Georgia, about if he was going to owe them money or not, But they went and got him. He was an all SEC guy, 9 sacks, 40 quarterback pressures. So it ain't going nowhere. Miami's here to stay.
Indiana back at 1. I don't know about that either because I don't know who they're returning. I don't think Mendoza's coming back.
No, Mendoza's gone. I think Hemby is gone, but they got Josh Hoover in from TCU, who's one of those quarterbacks that can make all the throws, but, he's not necessarily athletic. And then, they went and got Nick Marsh from Michigan State, who broke a lot of the Michigan State freshman records as a wide receiver 2 years ago, but obviously Michigan State was weren't that good of a team this year.
I like the conference diversity in this top 25. I do. I mean, granted, the SEC and the Big Ten have a shit ton of teams, and it's just it's pretty much just 3 conferences with 40 teams in them. I think the math is 51 teams between the Big 12, Big 10, and the SEC.
So teams that I think are too high. I think Notre Dame might be about 3 spots too high. So nothing egregious, but about 3 spots too high. I think Louisville should not even be ranked, or they should be at the very end of the top 25.
Did they get a big QB in the transfer portal? I
think they went and got
Sorsby pick up in Texas Tech is huge because he got $5 million.
They went and got Lincoln Keenholz, who was a big Ohio State recruit a couple of years ago.
Oh, I seen him play a few series for Ohio State. Yeah, he didn't look.
Yeah, that's
tier.
who they went out and got. They went and got my favorite Florida State wide receiver, LaWayne McCoy, as well. So there you go. Florida State losing players. We did get Trey Wisner from Texas, so I guess that's something. But SMU, another ACC team, got our tight end, Pittman. So, I don't know how I feel about SMU either. I think 17 could be about right, but I would also not have a problem if they were towards the end of the top 25. Michigan is the one.
You make a move that like you find notable.
Well, Michigan is the one that I want to know more about because they just got Kyle Whittingham. So definitely.
I think that's it.
No, definitely.
That's it.
Well, no, I was going to argue, but I was going to argue that they should probably be higher.
Well, they probably lost some guys with the Sharon Moore. You bring in
a
coach.
Justice Haynes. Yeah,
Justice Haynes went to his philosophy. So you imagine that at least a handful of guys who might have been staples for Sharon Moore going into this year won't be there. Maybe he pulls a few guys from Utah.
Yeah, Justice Haynes went to Georgia Tech, so that was a big loss for Michigan at running back because before the injury.
So I think the 18 is kind of indicative of him being like an adult in the room as a head coach. Not really like he's not an X's and O's, like he's not like an innovative coach or anything like that.
I think they still got Bryce Underwood.
I think he's just a good, solid, smart coach that will get that talent that comes in Michigan.
Well, I think Tim Beck is an upgrade over what they had at offensive coordinator as well. So, so I think Michigan will be better than 18, but I mean, this is early still. You got Penn State at 22, which is interesting because they're just basically Iowa State now. They got Rocco Beck coming in and a gang of other Iowa State players following Matt Campbell. And so, Penn State,
they didn't score a lot of points.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of points going on in Ames. So maybe, like I said, Western Pennsylvania especially has a lot of top tier high school football talent. I think they recruit Ohio well because Ohio State just can't take everybody from that region. I think even Jersey, like Penn State recruits Jersey very well.
Yeah, step your game up, Rutgers.
Rutgers, and I think Syracuse does the same thing. We're having this conversation. I think some schools are kind of like, you know what? We're going to be a developmental school. We have our Division I status. We have X amount of dollars. We can keep our program relevant. We are 7 or 8 win program every year. And if you want to go to another school, I think Fran Brown says something like, "Yo, give me 2 years. Come here for 2 years, and if you don't want to stay, then go. But I'm gonna develop you for 2 years." So I think certain schools are going to be able to kind of sell that space. Rutgers, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Maryland, some of these other schools.
No, Virginia Tech got James now. They got James Franklin now. They ain't thinking about no development.
Yeah, but you're in Blacksburg and you run for 1,100 yards. That dude down in Baton Rouge might call your agent to get you out of Blacksburg and get you down to,
speaking of Baton Rouge, I think that by the time the real top 25 comes out, in August, I think we might
top 6.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we'll see Ole Miss and LSU maybe swap spots.
Especially because I know the transfer portal closed, but I saw some of the Josh Pate was on with the Rich Eisen show. That's the path we want to be on because he was doing podcasts and you were a fan of his podcast, and all of a sudden he's doing shows with
Colin Cowherd. Yeah,
Colin Cowherd. So he's in that Fox track. So maybe we should get on that. But
hey, Mike, he's getting 1.4 as of last year. I don't know what he's getting now.
I think LSU will still be able to grab some of these guys that were in the portal, but the portal closed. But they'll just enroll at the school that wants them, and then they'll just walk onto the football team by spring practice.
Yeah. I don't know why Tennessee's here. I don't know why we keep doing this and lying to ourselves. Utah is interesting at 25 with Morgan Scalley taking over, first-time head coach. defensive-minded coach. So
Because
we'll see
he's a
how that works out.
defensive-minded guy. He's there. He's not a new coach. And Utah builds his programs from the trenches out.
Yeah.
So if he already has an understanding of the grittiness of the way the Utes play defense, he knows the offensive line as well.
Yeah.
So I think they're probably looking like, he's just going to continue exactly what Whittingham is doing. Hence why Whittingham is at 18 with question marks at Michigan and controversy and firings and all these things kind of swirling around the University of Michigan. They shouldn't be anywhere near the top 25 considering all the stuff that's occurred with their football program. But he's such a steady ship in this process that they're like, you know what? Because he's there, we think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I wonder if OU's a little high. They are getting John Mateer back. They went and got Terrell Harris from Virginia, great wide receiver, and they went and got Parker Livingstone from Texas. So upgrades, but do you have a quarterback that can get him the ball still? That's the,
I think
is Oklahoma going to be able
like
to
you
run
said, when the preseason one comes out, they'll probably slide to 15. LSU would get you to around.
I hate that orange.
I don't know if they keep Ole Miss above LSU just to create that controversy. I think they will because the NCAA is petty like that and they like money.
Well, they're not the ones behind the rankings. It's the AP.
Yeah.
There's
influence because, we know who they want. The committee seems to pick right along with the AP when they come with their final 12. It's rarely different. You won't have BYU at 11 in the AP and 17 in the college football playoff. They'll be around 11.
Yeah.
Nor will they'll be, Tennessee at 24 and then the college football playoff have them at 16. It pretty much lines up almost.
I think BYU
few deviations, but not many.
I think BYU may be a little low, but I just don't know who to swap them with. Because I think just looking at it, like I said, I think Notre Dame might be about 3 spots too high. I definitely think Oregon is 5 or 6 spots too high. Indiana
A&M does a great job of, reloading that bank card and buying and making sure their players are paid. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah,
so
and they lost both coordinators as well. So they're another team that lost both coordinators. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. Obviously we got to see the games on the field, but it's just fun to kind of have these conversations and just kind of get the juices flowing a little bit. Washington at 19 is a little surprising because
no JMU or Tulane or any of these Power 5 schools, I guess, who would be their represent. No one's represented them in the top.
I mean, at least throw Boise in there. Shit, somebody. But how do you feel about the new Pac-12? Are you excited for the new Pac-12?
Okay, yeah, run that down for me because I was tracking it and then I thought it wasn't going to happen. So what we got?
Yeah. So of course, you got Washington State and Oregon State, they're the, old guard, if you will. So the Pac-12 is bringing in Boise State.
Okay.
Colorado State.
Okay.
Fresno State. San Diego State. Utah State. And Texas State. But then for basketball, they're adding Gonzaga. So, of course, Gonzaga doesn't have a
State, Boise State, Utah State, Texas State, Oregon State,
Washington State,
and Washington State,
Fresno State, and San Diego State. Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that's going to be a damn good league,
Is that San Diego State?
Yeah. And then the Mountain West they're picking up UTEP and it was just on my brain. Northern Illinois from the MAC are coming over to the Mountain West. And, of course, they added Grand Canyon for basketball. So, yeah, realignment is still happening. It's just quiet because it's not the big boys.
I mean, I get it. You got to get Texas into your Pac-12. I think Texas State's a good team. I personally would love to see the day where the Pac-12 is the teams that can drive a short distance to the Pacific Ocean. I'm just like that's just one of the tiny requirements I have. In the ACC, be guys who are like, actually in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah.
You get to the Atlantic, even if you get to the Chesapeake Bay, get to the Hudson at least. At least be close to the body of water that touches your conference name. I'm good with that. They're gonna get treated like an afterthought because it looks very Mountain Westy. Their Pac-12 looks very Mountain West adjacent. Very was it the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference, that was back in the day? It looks a lot like that, but I mean they have their resurgence. Are they going? Is Texas, not Texas, but Cal and Stanford? Are they looking to like reintroduce any of these teams into their schedule? Because I think that helped them out, like just having a couple of games where you don't have to leave California or you don't have to leave the West
problem
Coast.
with them is that
they got to play 8 or 9 ACC games.
Well, yeah, and they got to play the 9 ACC games and a 10th Power 4 team is the new rule that these conferences are going with. So
the Pac-12 wouldn't even count.
Right. And so but a lot of these teams like San Diego State, Boise, obviously, are good enough that they could beat you. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they're going to get those games against Cal and Stanford, who are trying to rebuild.
I'm just looking at it like, I don't think you have to stack your deck in a schedule sense the way like some of these teams have. I'm just looking at it as like geographically, just getting back to, a Cal versus
saving money
annual. Yeah, you're saving money. You're able to really get your fan base, because I think Fresno State is like near Modesto, which is like more central Cali. Berkeley is, I think, somewhere around San Francisco.
It's around San Francisco, yeah.
Let me I'm not sure exactly of like the timeline, but I imagine if you're a fan of either team, if it's a 3-hour drive from one campus to the next for a football game, you're willing to do that on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning to watch your teams play. I just think it's just more beneficial for Stanford to play a game against Oregon State, or Stanford to play a game even against Utah State. Granted, you got to cross Nevada to get to Logan, Utah, where Utah State is, but at least that's an overnight trip. And
I know Cal did play. Cal did play Oregon State and San Diego State this past season. But like I said, it's going to be a little tougher because with that 10th Power 4 requirement, because all these teams are going to have to play 9 conference games and a 10th game against a Power 4 or Notre Dame. So I think it's harder to probably get the Boise's unless, you're a smaller team, like, I don't know, like a Northwestern or somebody like that versus, getting to play against Florida or Tennessee or somebody along those lines. So we'll see. Because
I'll take a Baylor matchup, something like that. I'll take that Baylor Big 12 matchup. It's a big enough name. It's a big enough football town that a win looks reputable. A win looks solid, but you don't want to play like if you're Stanford, because I don't think Stanford, like I said, some schools, I don't think it's wins or losses. I think you're just competing because you have a team and you want to compete. You want to put the best.
Well, I mean, they dominate all the other sports besides football and basketball.
And they dominate academically, and they have doctors and lawyers and a lot of Silicon Valley guys come out.
Yeah, which is why they would never be in a conference with some of these teams that we're talking about right now, because they look their noses down at them. But hey, enjoy your weekend, guys. Championship games on Sunday. Mr. Logical has Seattle in New England. I have the Rams in New England. I got the Rams as my Super Bowl champion. You know what I'm saying? Who you got as your champion? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I can't say New England, but I can. Defense, Seattle. I think in that matchup, I think Houston's defense has given Seattle a playoff rough draft
Yeah.
how to not like I don't know if you could do exactly the same thing because Daniil Hunter is a creative player and Will Anderson is mimicking everything that guy does. And I know that Seattle has a top tier defense,
Right.
but I think they've given them like a bit of a rough draft, like, hey, tweak this, and then we could possibly get to Drake May. And then Sam Darnold just has to play, you know, 67 to 70% consistent passing percentage, and then they hoist a trophy, and then the Carolina Panthers organization looks foolish by default. And the Jets just
So
continue to
basically,
look the
what
way
I
they look.
heard was y'all heard it here first. The NFC champion is the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? That is the real Super
NFC
Bowl.
West ended up being the conference that we all thought the NFC North was going to be.
Yeah.
We all low key thought the AFC West was going to be. I think we all kind of had a 3-headed monster coming out of that division with the Chargers, the Broncos,
And the
and
Chiefs.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think the North, it was a lot of Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota potentially, or not. It was like any of the 4. I think people were high on McCarthy, but they still felt like, hey, that could be 3. But Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, I think that was a lot of the talk. Like, hey, one conference is going to get 3 teams in, and that was going to be the one. I don't know if people had it to where Seattle, San Francisco, and the Rams are going to be as high up as they end up being.
For sure.
So, yeah,
but we will be
tough.
back. Well, we will be back on Tuesday with reaction, of course, some around the association and much, much more. He is the one and only world famous, world renowned, cool, calm, and collected. Born in Texas, raised in Virginia, representing everything New Jerusalem, even though he's still upset about this John Harbaugh thing. He is Mr. Logical. Down here in the Alamo, trying to avoid the ice because they ain't built like that down here. I'm your unorthodox statistician going left so much.
Down.
You thought I was Southpaw. I do believe in Joe Hendry. I am 2-5. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things, do all the good things. Murder your thirst. Liquid death in your hand.
Severed line.
And don't forget, we are everywhere that you get your podcasts. Sports Reports is ordered. Love y'all so much. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your time. See you in a few days. Out.